Everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Trust Client Accounting. This is Natasha from the Customer Success team at ActionStep, and we're going to take you through some top tips to help you manage your trust or client account. Now, you will hear those words be used interchangeably, and it does depend what region you're from, whether you call it a trust account or a client account. However, essentially, it is the same thing. It is where we segregate our clients' money from our business operating account. So today, we're going to look through some top tips, and they are how we open a trust account on a step change, how we can pay our invoices in one go. We're going to look at bulk trust statement generation, trust reconciliations, trust adjustments, reversals and deletions of trust reconciliations, and what we may do for our month-end reporting. Firstly, we're going to look at how we open a trust account on a step change. So I'm just going to run through a quick example, which is where we have a conveyancing matter. Okay, I'm going to fill in what I have to. Okay, so let's say we've received some funds. Now, to receive those funds, I have to add a trust account. Okay, so we're going to add, it will be current. We save that down. We've now got our trust account. I can now receive funds. Now, it may be that with a conveyancing matter, it's highly likely we're going to be opening a trust account. And it can either be on the start step or on any other step. So maybe it's after engagement and you have to find the best step for it, but we don't want to have to manually do that every time. So if we go to our matter types and I look in my conveyancing, if I go to my workflow steps and let's say I want on the start step, I want it to open a trust account automatically regardless. So just every time so that when I go to receipt funds, I've got my trust account there ready. So if I go to the start step, you can see here we have some step actions and you can see trust accounting data. If I turn that on, we can see here that we can have required current account. So that means it will open a trust current account every time we open a matter. We can also have optional, which means we tick a box. Do we want to open it on the start step or not? I'm going to put required and I'm going to hit save. So now when I go to create my conveyancing matter, you can see here, I can turn this one off, but this means I'm going to open that trust account so I don't have to manually do that second step. So if I go in and have a look and I go to my trust, my current account's already there. So that's just a neat little tip just to make life that little bit easier. Next, we're going to have a look at paying our invoices from trust all in one go. So if we go to trust and we go to invoice payments, the invoice payments we're talking about are our own invoices and what money is available in trust to pay those invoices. So if we go to pay invoice multi and we select our trust account, it will tell us whether we have any invoices outstanding and what balance we have available. We can use this apply all button to apply all of them, and we can receipt all those all at once. So that way we're only having to do one physical transfer from the trust account over to our business account. And we can hit save, and that will pay those invoices. So a really easy way to see what we can transfer. Now, another way that we can do this as well is we can set up a list view. So if we have a look here, I've set up a list view that tells me what's available in the trust current account and what invoices are there to be paid. So what I can do as well is I can actually set up a heads up on this report. So rather than me going in there, say every morning or once a week or however often I need to look at it, I can actually just get a heads up sent to me. And I might want that, let's say daily, every weekday between 6 and 7. And remember, we have advanced options here, and I might want 50 rows, and I want the attachment as well. So if I save that down, then this report will be sent to me every morning. So I know if there's money there that can be moved across or not. Did you know that you can send your trust statements out in bulk? So where we may want to send our trust statements in bulk would be maybe at the month-end process, so that we know that every month all of our clients who hold trust accounts are getting their monthly trust statements. Now, if we go to admin and then we go to trust accounting and we find the trust bank account that we want to turn on the settings for those statements. So you find the trust bank account and then go to the pencil that's on the right. Then as we come down, we'll see statement settings. And this is in relation to those bulk statements. So there are default settings. If you turn that off, you can change these settings here about when to include or exclude transactions and what to do if there's no transactions to that period end, and what to exclude where you have already actually given that client a statement. So you can pick those settings and hit save. Then once you've done that, we can go to the trust menu, go statements, and then multiple statements. Now to do a new batch, you click on new batch, you do a title, and then for the statement date end. Now the statement date start will start the day after your last batch. So just make sure when you're doing your first one, you've set it up correctly. And then it will always show the start date from the day after that batch statement. And then you hit generate batch. And what it will do is it will bring up a batch like this, and it will give you a list. And what we can do here is we can email them all, we can download them all. And this is a real quick and easy way to get our trust statements out to our clients. So first of all, what are trust reconciliations? Well, a reconciliation is the accounting procedure that proves your trust transactions have been recorded accurately. What this means is that when we do a reconciliation, we're looking at all of our trust transactions in action step and making sure they match every transaction on our trust bank account statement. And that way we know we're accounting for every single deposit and every single withdrawal. How do we do our trust account reconciliations? They can be done in two ways. One is manually, which means we go into our bank and we download our trust bank account statement. We then look at our reconciliation in action step and we tick off manually every transaction to make sure that all of them have been entered into action step. If you've done this, you should then upload that bank statement with all the ticks and all the highlighter or whatever you use to do it to the reconciliation. Another way to do it is electronically, and that means you can download your bank file and upload it to action step, and you can complete that process in an electronic version. When should trust accounts be reconciled? All law societies have different rules regarding how often the trust account should be reconciled. For your trust reports to work, then your trust account needs to be reconciled on the last day of every month at least. However, in terms of best practice, we recommend that you reconcile daily. Remember, the longer you leave completing your reconciliations, the harder they are to reconcile. If you left your reconciliations to the end of every month, you'll find it really difficult to keep up. We all know that we face audits when we have trust or client accounts, and there are different processes for how those audits are done. However, all will require your reconciliation reports over a period of time. If you are a trust account supervisor, we do recommend that you check on at least a monthly basis these following trust reports that you can see here in this slide. Now, you should make a note somewhere in Action Step, or even have a workflow process for this to show that you have reviewed those reports and keep those reports stored somewhere. And it's a really easy place for an auditor to come in and see that you've been reviewing those reports every month and making notes that they have been reviewed. And the reason for this is that when you're responsible for the trust account, you have to show evidence that you've been monitoring the administration of the trust account. So you may be a supervisor, but you may have someone else who's doing that administration. And the things you need to look out for is looking at adjustments, for example, and making sure that the same adjustment hasn't been occurring for months on end. If it has, there may be a question there and there may be something you need to investigate. So it is just keeping that supervisory role. Let's now jump into an action step system and show how we do a reconciliation. Now we'll have a look at completing a trust transaction in Action Step. So I'm in my Action Step system and I come up to the Trust menu, down to Reconciliations, and we can create a reconciliation from here or look at our reconciliation list, and that's a list of all the reconciliations that have been done. So if I click on Create Reconciliation, I want to create a reconciliation for the end of December. So I need to give my statement a reference. And normally that could be the date that you're completing it. And here I pick the format. So this is if I'm doing a manual reconciliation, so it will be a printed bank statement and I'm doing that manually, or an electronic statement upload. And I need to put the closing balance that's on my bank statement for that date. We're going to go through the manual process for this example. And I hit save. I'm then given a list of all the transactions for December. So I look at my bank account statement and I match those transactions to what's here on the screen. So I can see these transactions are on my bank statement. However, these are not, and that's because they were done in error. So no money actually physically left the account and they have been cancelled. They have cancelled each other out, so they can be ticked off. So that means that my reconciliation is done and it is fully matched. So everything on my bank account statement matches what's in Action Step. So I can then click the fully matched button. This is where I can enter any items that did not reconcile, which we will go through next. Then we click, once we're happy, we click Save and Next. And this tells me that my reconciliation is done and I can complete the reconciliation. Now I can click here to view the reconciliation report. However, because we've done this process manually, remember I said it's a good idea to upload that bank account statement you used to complete the process. So if we go back to our list, which we can see here, you can see here this document and a little paperclip. If we click on this here, we can then upload that bank account statement that we used to the actual reconciliation, which is a great idea for those audits. We're now going to look at adjustments and how they relate to a trust reconciliation. So what is an adjustment? An adjustment is a transaction that can be posted to the trust account to show either a negative or a positive entry. So for example, a client may come into the office and they pay an invoice with cash and it's the last day of the month. So we receipt that cash into action step, but it's not banked and doesn't appear on the bank statement until the following day. So when I'm doing that month-end reconciliation, I can see in my action step transaction that there has been a deposit. However, that deposit doesn't show in my bank account statement. So what we do there, we don't change the deposit in action step because it is the date that we received the cash. What we do is we do an adjustment, and that adjustment shows that we're waiting for that cash to appear on our bank statement. There are different kinds of adjustments. So we have unpresented checks, which is where you've sent a client a check but they've not yet cashed it. So that money has not left the trust bank account, but we have made an allowance for it in our action step system. And also an outstanding deposit, which is the same as the example I described above. We also have another one, other, which you can use in limited circumstances where it does not fit the other two. I'm now going to show you how to do this adjustment while you're doing your reconciliation in action step. So we go to new reconciliation. And I'm doing a reconciliation for the 31st of December. Again, it's a manual process. And my bank account statement, the closing balance is 80,000 as at that date. I then hit save. We then go through all of our transactions and mark them off. Now this one was a reversal, so it doesn't appear on my bank statement. That's fine, it reverses itself out. Now this one here, this deposit of 500, does not appear on my bank statement, so I'm not going to reconcile that. And I'm going to say fully matched for the ones that I have on my bank account statement. So this means that this item here, this deposit, wasn't reconciled, and I need to say why. So I give it a category and it's an outstanding deposit, and that's because the cash deposit does not appear on the bank statement. So once I've added in my adjustment, I can then go save and next. And now my account reconciles because I've done that outstanding deposit. So I can complete that reconciliation. Now what happens when we do that is if we go back to our list, we can see that that has been reconciled. And if I go to do a new reconciliation after that date, and we make it for the 19th of January, and our 500 has now appeared in our bank statement, you will see that we still need to match that outstanding adjustment. So that these adjustments will always come through to the next reconciliation, where you can then complete when that cash has come in or when that check's been cashed. We're now going to look at what happens when we need to go back and edit a trust transaction because there's been an error. When we do a trust reconciliation, all of those trust transactions that are in the reconciliation are locked, which means we can't go in and edit them. So if you do need to do that, then you need to go back to the reconciliation that that transaction belongs to, and you need to unlock it. And if it's only in relation to one particular transaction that was done in the latest reconciliation, then you can just unreconcile that particular transaction to change it, and then go back in and reconcile that transaction and save down the reconciliation. However, if it's multiple transactions you're looking to edit that were in the latest trust reconciliation, then it's probably best to go in to that reconciliation, unlock it and then delete it. Go and fix up all your mistakes and then repeat the reconciliation process again. It is worthwhile remembering that if that error is dated several trust reconciliations in the past, then all of the preceding reconciliations have to be deleted until you get to the date you require. So that means that if it was 3 months ago, then you do have to unwind those 3 months of trust transactions. And there is a reason for that. We don't want it to be easy, and we should be very careful when we're doing our reconciliations that we are getting all those transactions correct. I'm now going to go through how we unlock and how we delete reconciliations. So if there was a transaction in this reconciliation that I want to amend, and it's the latest one, I can unlock it, and I can then unmatch it. By unmatching that transaction, it's not part of the reconciliation anymore, so I can go and edit it. When I have done that, I can come back in, match it back up, and complete the reconciliation again. Now, if the transaction that I want to edit is within a preceding reconciliation here, if I go and try to unlock it, it's going to tell me there's an error. And actually, I need to unlock and delete any reconciliations before it. So in order to get to this one, unfortunately, we have to unlock and then delete. We always have to unlock first. And then we can go in and unlock this one to change what trust transaction we need to here. And repeat that same process. Now remember, if we are working backwards, when you go back in and complete those reconciliations, it will change the date and time and whoever has made that reconciliation. So when they're looking at audits, they will be able to tell that those reconciliations were completed at a later date. Now we're just going to have a brief look at the month-end trust process. So you do probably have a month-end process that you run through where you complete your reconciliation reports. You may send that over to a supervisor. They may just inspect and make sure that everything with the trust account is fine. And then what do we do to show that we're doing that? And I think a really good idea is to make sure in your matter types that you have a business administration matter type. And this goes for everything in Action Step. So Action Step's fantastic at keeping all your client matters and files and all your documents together, but you can also use it for your administration as well. So if we have a business administration matter type, we can set up a trust account administration matter. So if I go into my matter, you could have a month-end process if you wanted to develop a workflow. However, what a really good idea to do is to make sure we've got our year folder and then every month. So at the end of a month end, we can upload all of our reports, our bank statements to here for each month. Then whenever we're audited, we can always let the trust auditor see this matter and they can go in there and see what's happening. If we're emailing a supervisor, we can do it from here as well, so that there's a record that these are being sent to the supervisor, and they could also come in and make a file note that everything's been reviewed, there've been no problems, or if there's been any issues, what's happened and what's been the process. So it's one centralized system, and it's a good idea to do this every month. And then you have all your evidence here sitting in this one matter. Thanks everyone for tuning in to the webinar on Client Trust Accounting Top Tips. If you have any questions, please feel free to email it through to customersuccess@actionstep.com, and make sure to sign up for one of our workshops, which is where we go through all of these themes in a workshop, which is limited amount of spaces, so that we can take as many questions as possible and make it as interactive as possible. Via email, you'll also be sent this webinar video, a video of one of the workshops, questions and answers, and any user guide articles that we think will assist with any of these themes. And please note that we do have user guide articles on end of month trust practices, which will be sent out. And there is a specific one as well for our New Zealand customers. Thanks everyone for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in those workshops.